Alrighty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Happy birthday to you.
Hello. Welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander, and each week we explore what's working and what's not in our friendships, community, and connections. Have you ever wished you could sit down and have a conversation about what is really going on in your friendships? Well, you found your people. Join us as we dive into real-life stories and explore new ways to approach these connections. Together, we're reimagining the rules of friendship. Picture this. You're 22, fresh out of college, and you just moved back to your hometown. You've got some friends scattered around the city, sure, but suddenly making plans feels hard. Like, really hard. And you can't remember the last time making plans felt hard because you were just in college. Your friends were at the dining hall, in the apartment next door. You always knew where you could go to find someone. And now you're stuck texting back and forth about hanging out this weekend without it ever actually happening. And you're sitting there thinking, wait, when did hanging out with my friends get so hard? That's exactly what happened to my guest today, Jason Edmonds. He graduated from a tiny liberal arts college on the East Coast. We're talking about 350 people in his freshman class. The kind of place where you could just walk 5 minutes to your friend's dorm at 2 a.m. to play Super Smash Bros. And then one plane flight back to Seattle across the country, and suddenly everything feels different. Here's the thing about post-college friendship transition that I think we don't talk enough about. When you're in your very early 20s, you don't expect it to be hard. Friends are life. Sure, you've heard about people in their 30s and 40s struggling to make friends, and you think, well, that won't be me. I'm young, I'm social, I like to go out to the bars, I always know how to find people. I know how to make friends. But college friendship and adult friendship, they're different games. So Jason did what any very brave and very resourceful person would do. He created his own solution. He couldn't find the kind of group he wanted. I've talked about this before. So he created one. He started 6 Degrees, which is like blind dating, but for making friends. They match people into small groups based on personality quizzes and then bring them together for activities like gingerbread house decorating or mini golf. It's IRL, it's intentional, and it's helping people in Seattle find their people. But this conversation isn't really about 6 Degrees. Sure, we're going to talk about it in the episode. It's really about that jarring transition from college social life to adult friendship. The vulnerability of admitting you need help making friends when 6 months ago, friends were everything and it just felt easy. With that, let's get into today's episode. Jason, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
It's been a hot second since we've talked. How have you been?
I've been good. It's been really busy with the holiday season and all of that. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the new year, honestly.
Too.
Yeah. I kind of want to turn the chapter on this one.
Okay. So do you feel like 2025 was maybe a little bit of like a dumpster fire?
It wasn't a dumpster fire. I think that I was able to do so many cool things throughout 2025.
Yeah.
But
we're going to
you
talk
know that
about
feeling
those.
when you're like, oh, like, you're kind of ready for the year to be over and a new one to begin.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's just another month turning over. I guess you have to remember to write a different year on things for a hot second. But I was actually just thinking about that today because we're recording this on December 30th and I've got some things I want to start doing. Like consistency is a big goal for me for next year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, gosh, why am I not just starting today? Like, why am I waiting 2 more days? It's so silly how hooked we get to the dates and things. But
I agree. I'm literally trying to do the exact same thing. Like my New Year's resolution is to follow through on the things that I say I'm going to do.
okay.
And I'm so awful at that. Like, but no, this is the year that I finally figured that part of it out.
I get that. I mean, I have a few goals, but one of my goals this year, I'll share here, is to finally be consistent on social media. I am so hit or miss, and I just need to commit to posting,
Yeah.
like maybe not every day, but at least every weekday.
Social media is so hard though. My brand 6 Degrees is very, very dependent on social media. And even then it's like a constant grind. Like I took a week off posting on social media this past week and it felt like kind of a relief honestly, but also
Yes.
at the same time I was like, wow, this is like really not good because I felt like guilt every day for not posting because I knew that once you kind of start, you have to keep the content coming out.
I think that's honestly why I struggle so much is I feel like once I start, quote unquote, right? Like once I start this year and I'm saying I'm going to post, like, does it ever end? It feels like this new thing that'll like never end in my life. I need to find the joy in it. Maybe that's my goal for
Yeah,
2026.
yeah,
Find the
yeah.
joy in social media.
No, so for me, like I don't naturally come from the social media world, but what does make me really happy is like bringing people together at, 6 Degrees events and seeing the friendships that are made from them. And that always reinvigorates my energy. But the posting part is a little bit cumbersome at times.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But you get that in real life payout. Let's talk about that for a second. I will do an intro and I will talk about 6 Degrees from my words. But can you describe 6 Degrees from your perspective?
Yeah, 6 Degrees is based on the problem that I felt when I first moved back to Seattle. And I moved back to Seattle actually, it was February of 2025. I didn't really recognize the city that I had grown up in. I went to high school here, but most of my friends had moved on to other places. And I just didn't like the options that I had for meeting new people around the city. I felt like a lot of times the gatherings were just, oh, like a bunch of people gather into a bar. And no hate on that. I love bars. But it didn't feel like the most personal touch for what I was looking for in particular at that time. So I decided to start 6 Degrees, which is an IRL social experience. We essentially, like, our kicker is that we want to make every event feel like a smaller group gathering. And so we have all the people who sign up for 6 Degrees take a personality quiz. And we've developed this like pretty neat algorithm that helps pair people into smaller groups of 4 to 6 so that even in a group of maybe 30, 40 people, you still have 4 or 5 curated people that you can really talk to and get to know on like a deeper level. And that was just honestly the solution that I was looking for when I first moved back here. And it's been really cool to see it develop and all the different forms has taken shape. Another thing that we try to do that sets us apart is we try to predicate our events around activities. I feel like activities for me have been a really fun way to bond with friends over time. And it's just an easy conversation starter. Like, hey, we can kind of make fun of each other for how bad our gingerbread house decorating is going, or poke fun at our mini golf skills, and we leave with a closer bond as a result of the activity. So I try to make sure that all of my events are unique, they have some kind of twist, and they are predicated around an activity of some sort.
There's so many directions I could go from everything you just said. I'm going to ask a couple more questions about 6 Degrees because we're here. If somebody wants to show up, so they take the personality quiz, you pair them together.
Yeah.
I've seen your events calendars, right? You
Yeah.
have a few events every month. Somebody shows up to the gingerbread making class. Is there more than 4 to 6 people there, or is it just 4 to 6 people?
Yeah, so there's more to 4 to 6 people there. The reason for that is because I want people to have other people to talk to outside of their group. It's hard to perfectly match people every single time. And sometimes it's just it doesn't click. And what I've learned is like, that's okay. So I've learned that the best events are where you have a mixture, where you have time to talk with your smaller groups, but you also have time to mingle with everybody else who's at the event. So our ideal event size, and I would say the average size for most of our events, is 15 to 25 people. And I think that gives that really good mixture of the ability to break down into smaller groups for that more meaningful conversation, but then also to just have a good time with the entire group. It really has been something that I think has been able to fill up people's social calendars in some ways. And so it's kind of nice because we have some regulars who've kind of been with Six Degrees for a while, and they come to our bar crawls and they all hang out with us, and it's a really good vibe. So I would encourage anyone who is nervous about coming. Like, it's not just like you're going to be seated at this table with 3 other people, and if it's bad, then good luck. It's going to be more of like a big group hang, but with pockets where you'll be able to meet people on a more intimate level.
You know, I talk to a lot of people who start groups like this. Obviously, it's not my first episode with someone who has started an IRL group. And I always champion people like you who are doing the IRL events because it is hard to do that. But I think I haven't heard anybody that has your model yet where you're kind of matched with a smaller group and then, but also have this bigger group. That's really for anybody who has social anxiety going to an event like this, I think it's a really fun combo because if you are anxious, maybe stick a little tighter to your small group and just try to get to know those couple people.
Yep.
But then if you get there and you are anxious and nothing seems to hit, there are some other options of people to talk to. And I get a lot of questions from people kind of like, okay, so I go to this event. What if it doesn't hit? What if it doesn't work? What if I don't meet anybody? What if it feels like a waste of time is kind of what they're saying.
Yep.
And you're just giving so many opportunities for someone to find some connection in this room.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that part of being a community organizer is respecting the time and the courage that it takes to actually put yourself out there. So that's kind of where I start with fundamentally is it's not easy because I was here myself last February where like, I was like, okay, I should go out to this thing, but I just stayed at home because I had the same exact concerns of who's going to be there. Are they going to like me? Am I going to have to go up and introduce myself to someone? And I don't really like that. So as someone that has struggled with anxiety in the past as well, like I totally feel that. And so I've purposefully designed Six Degrees around that, where I want to lower all the barriers for why somebody would say like, nah, I don't want to do that. I think that's the most difficult part is just like actually showing up and giving something a chance. And so I think that's the toughest part about running any community, in my opinion. So I try as my best to lower the barriers around that.
Well, I think you're doing a great job so far.
Thank you.
You know, like maybe could you hone it in and perfect it over time? Sure. But give
Yeah, of
yourself a
course.
big pat on the back because I think it's a genius model.
Thank you.
I want to talk more about 6 Degrees, but actually let's backtrack.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm going to loop back. I'm going to loop back to 6 Degrees. So tell me a little bit. You graduated from college. What part of the country did you go to college in?
Yeah, so I went to college. It's a very small, like, liberal arts school on the East Coast. And it felt very much like high school. Like, we had, I think, 350 people in my freshman class.
I thought I went to a small college. Okay.
Yeah, the school is called Haverford College. It's, like, super small, and everybody knows each other. It was good in some ways, bad in others. It was really easy to build that, like, tight-knit community. But I think that's what a big part of the problem is post-college, you don't have that same proximity. Yeah. I remember on my freshman year college campus, my friends and I could just walk 5 minutes over to each other's dorms, and our campus was really small and we could play Super Smash Bros. At 2 a.m. and it was no big deal. And
what I would give for like 1 month of that life again. Anyways, yep.
I know. I would. I think about it a lot. I'm like, wow, that was a good time.
Yes, all the time we talk about this. Like if I could just go back even 1 week, give me 1 week of that.
1 week, yeah.
A decade of my life. Every decade I get 1 week of that. I would take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Versus now as a young adult, I moved back here and I did have friends here. But I had one friend that was in Woodinville. I had one friend in Seattle. I had one friend that, like up north Seattle around Linwood. And it's just like, meeting each other, even finding a common ground, it takes a lot of planning. And
Yep.
I'm not sure if this is like a guy thing or not, but we're not the best planners of all time. And so we would say, oh yeah, like this weekend we're gonna for sure hang, and nothing would happen. And the next weekend we'd be like, all right, let's hang, and nothing would happen. And we would just have the same thing like happen to us every single weekend. And I think, that proximity matters when you're trying to make those plans.
Okay, this was not an angle I intended to go, but now I have more questions about this because I think this is not something I've ever talked about in the podcast, but my brain is going off over here. I got like fire alarms going on.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Not all women, but a good number of women, right, would like pick an activity and say, do you want to meet here on Saturday? Do you want to get brunch? Do you want to go to this art show? Do you want to go on a walk, right? And they pick a time.
Yep.
And what you're saying is you and your guy friends are kind of like, let's get together. And so is the reason you aren't hanging out because nobody messages each other? Or is it because by the time you are messaging each other, it's like, oh, I got to get in the car and drive 45 minutes and I don't know if I have time for that today? Like, what's the barrier, do you think?
I would say it's more the latter. Like,
Okay.
we do want to hang out with each other at the end of the day, but because everything is so last minute and we don't actually pick a thing that we want to do, it's like, oh, like we'll hang. And then it's like, okay, like, well, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? We haven't like locked anything in. And so our hangouts usually consist of, okay, like let's get food, but it's difficult, right? Like something always kind of comes up at the end, like, oh, I have to help my family out with some chores or I got to do X, Y, and Z. And it just never fully materializes.
I think about this because I spend way too much time analyzing my own friendships. And I almost think that the closer you are to people, as a female, this is how I feel. Like the friends I am better friends with, the more I do this kind of like want to hang thing.
Yes.
And the friends I am not as close with, right? It's like, do you want to go on a walk 3 Saturdays from now at 3 p.m., right? And it is in the calendar.
Yeah.
But then the friends I'm closer to, it's kind of like, hey, we should get together this weekend, is normally what we say. And then we get to Saturday morning and we will text each other and it's like, okay, well, what do we want to do? We spend plenty of time on the couch just hanging out. Like that's not, we do that. But sometimes we want to leave the house. But then it's almost like, okay, what are we,
Actually, I was going to ask you this question because I know that you study friendship, so much. What's like the right kind of activity for the right kind of friend? Like with that close friend, if you're suggesting an activity, is that kind of a weird thing or is that something that, we should be doing more of?
I think that the more variety you can have in activities, the easier it is to hang out. And by that, I mean, like, there are plenty of activities with my closest friends that I am very comfortable doing that are easy to ask them to do. Like, hey, you want to get dinner? You want to go on a walk? You want to come over and sit on my couch, right? And that's going to vary for everybody. I'm not saying that like, if you don't feel like your friend can come sit on your couch, if that feels uncomfortable, they're not your close friend. It's going to be different for everybody. Like it might be, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who is incredibly into like outdoorsy stuff and mountaineering. And he just posted about how he basically rode his bike for 24 hours with a group of friends. Like that might be something he's really comfortable doing with his friends, but inviting them to come sit on the couch and watch a TV show is not. I think the activity can be different. But the more activities, the more variety you have in things that feel comfortable, the easier it is to invite someone along. So an example of that would be, you were saying earlier, I can't hang out because I have to help my family with something around their house.
Yeah.
Now, if your friend knows your family and that's a comfortable way to hang out, you might be like, hey man, I got to go over and I told my parents I would do the yard work because my dad blew out his back. Like if you want to just come hang out in the backyard and chat while I rake leaves, like bring a chair and sit, maybe you want to help, maybe you don't, but like you can just come hang out. But if that friend has never come to your parents' house before, you're probably not likely to invite them.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
I think it's good to mix it up and add in new things. Some of my closest friends, actually, something we've started doing is we created a shared note. And anytime one of us thinks of an idea of something we want to try together, we just put it in the shared note.
You guys are way more advanced than my friends and I.
And then, well, because you're not always thinking about it, right? It could be like some activity you saw, or I'm trying to think, like some things that are in there. I have one note that is kind of with like some girlfriends of mine. And then I have one note that's with a larger group. So there's guys in there too. Mm-hmm. And the larger group note has things like, let's go to Emerald Downs. Okay. Let's go. We have a friend who's British and used to play, like he does play rec rugby now, but he used to play like very competitive rugby when he was younger. Like, let's go to a Seattle rugby game. Yeah. Let's go to the free museum Thursdays in Seattle.
Yeah.
Let's rent that sauna thing that floats on Lake Union. Like anything that anybody sees, they just drop it in there. And some of those require more planning, or they're only a certain time of year. But other things, you know, could be like, go check out this new restaurant. Yeah. And we're all sitting around being like, I don't know what to do. It's like, hey, I saw this viral TikTok of this soft serve ice cream in Pioneer Square. Like, should we just go down there?
Yeah. I think I need something like that because, we're not even at step one. Like, all we have is the group chat, and it's just usually I think how my plans tend to develop is we just meet up and then we decide what to do. Mm-hmm. And I think when you get to a certain level of friendship, that's probably how it starts to show itself a little bit more, is you feel comfortable just like meeting each other, and whatever you're doing, it's going to be like a relatively good time and you're kind of sure of that. I guess I feel like with my events, I have to go not over the top, but more leaning into the activity side because people don't know each other yet.
Yep.
But with my close friends, it's just like, okay, like, you know, we can drive around for 15 minutes, 20 mm-hmm. minutes deciding where to eat. Yep. And it wouldn't be weird.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I want to be clear with people. I have those types of hangouts too, where it's like somebody will just come over and then maybe we decide to go do something.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're messaging and it's like, I don't really want to sit around at home. Like, I want to get out of the house. So like, let's pick something. I'll come pick you up. Let's go. This whole conversation about activities and proximity got me thinking about something I want you to try. If you have a friend you want to be closer to, start making some mental notes of things you could invite them to. But these things that you're going to invite them to, they feel like they're kind of pushing an edge. Here's what I mean. A couple nights ago, friends of ours invited us to Topgolf. The activity itself wasn't the edge. The edge was that our friend's dad was joining. And we've never met our friend M's parents. She's incredibly close with them, sees them all the time. But by inviting us into this activity, she's pushing her edge because she wants to make it feel comfortable and normal that we could be invited to her parents' house for a summer barbecue or join them for dinner if they're going out with her parents. By doing this, it would add a new way for us to feel comfortable hanging out. Now, we were busy that night, so we had to say no, but I felt genuinely bummed about it. Not because we missed Topgolf, but because I recognized that this was an edge. She was actively trying to let us in, and this would have added a new route to our friendship, a new way that we felt comfortable hanging out. So here's your challenge. Next time you have a friend you want to get closer to, or just an activity where you consider inviting someone along, but it feels a little bit out of the ordinary, maybe do it. Push the edge, add a route, try it out. This is one of the ways that friendships actually grow, not just by doing the same thing over and over, but by expanding what feels normal in your friendship. Where I was going to go with this is, so you moved back to Seattle.
Yep.
You had some close friends here.
Yes.
But was it that you wanted people that were in closer proximity? Like, what was the missing? Because it sounds like you got some good friends. Like, what was the missing piece for, or just more variety, people in a certain interest?
I think part of it was proximity. And then part of it was that like my friends were actually not all back at the same times.
Got it.
So I had a friend who like moved here as another friend was leaving. So it was just kind of like mismatch of timings. And then honestly, like I am used to having a broader social life. I just think from like college, like you're just get like used to like knowing a lot of people or just like having different friend groups for different kind of things as well. And so I was just looking to expand my circle, honestly, and just like meet new people in the city. And I just think that in college, there were so many built-in ways for me to do that. But coming to Seattle, and I know we have this stigma known as, you know, the Seattle freeze or whatever the case may be, that actually was what initially got me interested in building 6 Degrees, because I kept hearing that at like every social thing that I went to. But I was just like, I do want to have a open-minded, friendly attitude towards meeting new people.
So what are some of the things you tried before you decided like, I'm not finding the solution I want?
Yeah. So I tried a few meetup groups and it was not bad for sure. I definitely met some people. I tried a few networking events. I have less good things to say about the networking events. I'm personally not super big on meeting people for networking sake. To me, it's always felt a little bit transactional. I mean, obviously, you know, you got to do what you got to do. But I always just...
Yeah, they click for some people. It's not your thing.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody has to like everything.
And to me, the way I've always felt about it is one meaningful connection is a lot better than 50, you know, hey type of connections. And so I'd rather really understand and like learn about that person. And I felt like the common thing was that at most of these events, it was very like, I talk to one person for 2 minutes and then I go off to another conversation for 2 minutes. And, you know, we're talking in these like little pockets of like 4 or 5, but it's like for 5 minutes at a time. And then someone leaves and someone new comes in. And so, yes, I might meet like 50 people in one night, which, just as a disclosure, you will not get at a 6 Degrees event. So if you're looking for, you know, meeting 50 people in one night, then, you know, you should go to some of these networking or meetup groups. But for me, like, I was really looking to talk to like maybe 2 or 3 people, but I really wanted to like know about them, like learn about what makes them tick and things like that. And I felt like those spaces didn't have the room for me to fully explore some of those connections unless I, you know, asked for their contact information and then I followed up on it. And then I was like, okay, like let's arrange something, all of which I never really did. So that's kind of why it didn't work for me personally. But I think for others, you know, those are definitely great options.
So the following up and the like reaching outside of the group, you don't feel like 6 Degrees requires that? Is that just because people keep showing up?
I do think that 6 Degrees does require that to a certain degree. Yeah, like
I was like, wait, did you solve this problem? Like, how did you do that? Because that's a big problem for people.
Yeah,
okay,
that we actually are working on a solution for that.
Okay.
Like, as we speak.
Fun.
But
Love it.
I can't share too much about that.
Yes,
But
we're on the edge of our seat. We're waiting.
yeah, so that is one of the problems that's very difficult to solve. We do have some people who've returned to 6 Degrees. So at some of our events, we'll have like a pocket of people who have been to 4 or 5 events together. And so they're well acquainted, they're very welcoming, and we can kind of have like, you know, a big group hang, if that makes sense. So yeah, I will say though, I think that the following up part is just going to inherently be a part of making friends. And I know that it can be very daunting and a little bit awkward, but my closest friends that I've made through 6 Degrees are the ones that they followed up or I followed up with.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. Making friends in the group you created.
Yeah, well, this was really like solving my own problem. Yeah, the first friend that I made through 6 Degrees was this guy named PJ. He hit me up on Instagram after we met at one of our secret dinner events.
Classic, yep.
Yep. He, you know, was like basically asking to hang out again. And I was like, oh yeah, like sure, like let's do it. And we played FIFA together, just sat on the couch, and it was a lot of fun. So I think, yeah, to that point, I think 6 Degrees and a lot of these social scenarios are a really good way to kind of kick the conversation off and to find someone that you genuinely vibe with. But it does take, I think, someone doing the reaching out to kind of set up that next thing. And I haven't quite figured out how to make it not that way. I wish there was like an easier way and like a less awkward way to do it. But in my experience, like it does take that first person reaching out. But I guess the one word of advice that I would say to, I guess, like ease some of the hesitation to do that is that usually the other person's on the same page. Like if if you guys were talking for, an hour, 2 hours at the event, and they're happy to give you their Instagram or their number, whatever the case may be, like usually they're on the same page of like, okay, like I would be down to hang out again.
I mean, especially if someone has come to an event meant to help you make friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Like I talk about this a lot. Not everyone's going to have the same intention of like adding to their social circle at the same time. But if two people have gone to the same event meant to make connections, then I hope that eases your social anxiety just a little bit if you think about the fact that both of you probably had the same goal if you used your time that way.
Yeah. I also think about the worst case scenarios that, maybe it wasn't reciprocated or it didn't work out that way. And that's fine, right? Like we can kind of just like, move on. At the end of the day, it's kind of right back to where we started beforehand. So I think that reaching out and taking the next step part is really important. But I understand that it can be very scary.
Jason just hit on something that honestly trips up so many people. That follow-up after you meet someone you actually maybe want to be friends with. Because when you can't rely on proximity, on seeing them at an activity that you go to weekly or work where you go daily, when there's no built-in reason that you'll see each other again, you have to be the one to reach out and basically say, hey, I thought you were cool. And that feels vulnerable, right? What if they didn't feel the same way about you? What if they're not trying to make new friends right now? I actually have an entire episode about this exact scenario, the awkwardness of making friends when you can't rely on proximity, which is episode 123. And some others that I think would help if you are in this scenario, I did one on reframing rejection, seeing it as someone rejecting your offer, not rejecting you. That's episode 145. And if you're sitting there convinced that the person that you met probably didn't enjoy talking to you as much as you enjoyed talking to them, that's called the liking gap. And spoiler alert, you're probably being way harder on yourself than you should be. So go listen to episode 41. Now, I want to leave you with one other practical tip that stood out to me when Jason and I were talking. If you connect with someone and you happen to find them on social media, use that as your bridge. Send them a quick, hey, nice meeting you message. Then actually engage. Comment on their new post. Respond to a story. I'm not saying go back and like comment on posts from years ago, but if they post something or if they have a recent post, engage with it. Think of it as research. Like, did they post about an activity you also enjoy? Maybe pickleball. Send them a message. Be like, hey, I also love pickleball. Want to come play at the courts I usually go to? Now, not everyone's really active on social media and sharing regularly, but if they are, use it. It could be such a natural way to ease into that connection and start to see the ways that you have shared interests. And in a world that we live in today, we got to take every opportunity we can to find those natural ways to connect. Do you think, because you mentioned social anxiety earlier, do you think the reaching out is maybe one of the biggest social anxiety points? Or maybe going to your first event? Like, what do you think is one of those bigger hurdles for someone that's feeling some social anxiety?
I think going to your first event is probably even bigger. I think there are both points where social anxiety can come into play. I think one of the things that I think a lot about is misconnections. How many misconnections do we have? And do we want to live our lives with misconnections, right? So there's many different opportunities where you can miss a connection, right? You miss a connection by not even going out, right? Or how many people could you be missing out on meeting just by, staying at home and watching Netflix? And don't get me wrong, that's a great way to
Yeah.
spend an evening. I've definitely done my fair share of Netflix and by myself evenings. But how many connections could you be missing out on? And then, the other one is, yeah, if you met someone that was like genuinely cool and you guys really like vibed, if you guys never speak again, that could be a potential missed friendship or a missed connection as well. So that's how I kind of put it in my mind as well, is like, I want to live my life as someone that doesn't have regrets and did the things that they wanted to do and put themselves out there. And even if it was awkward or it got burned a few times, like at least we flipped over the rock and saw what was on the other side. And so that's kind of my approach to making friendships as well, is, you kind of have to kind of put yourself out there.
I think it's like any other life goal, right? Like if you
Yeah.
wanted to, if I wanted to like be stronger and be able to lift my desk up in front of me, I would need to go to the gym regularly and I need to be uncomfortable
Yep.
and I'd get sweaty and like I would be sore. We have understandings that it is not going to be without friction, without, some discomfort, and changing up your social connections, as I'm sure you would agree, because you're like just inside a year of having to rebuild after moving home.
Yeah.
Definitely has had some discomfort this year.
For sure. The other thing I want to say about that piece of like comfort in particular is I think that so much of our technology and the way our world is manufactured is kind of built for comfort. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we can just hide behind the screen and just, scroll on Instagram for hours, or we can use a dating app or Bumble BFF, right? Where you can just kind of virtually swipe through people and text people instead of actually going out and taking that risk to meet someone in real life. And that's why I'm such a big champion of like going out and like meeting someone, because it kind of gets you a little bit uncomfortable, not in like a bad way, but I think that's where you truly like learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
That's truly where you grow. And even in the past year, I feel like I've grown so much just by putting myself out there and meeting so many different people like in real life. I don't think I would have had the same growth if I were just texting them the entire time, talking about, what future plans we might make. And that this is no dig at like dating apps or technology or anything
It's okay.
like that.
We can dig a little bit at technology and dating apps on here. That's fine.
I've totally had my fair share of those nights as well. But I do think that, the true growth comes from putting yourself out there.
I think there's this massive swing, right? Where so much of college life is about your social life. In fact, I
Yep.
joke with my dad all the time that like he paid for me to have friends.
Yeah.
Right. I have a public relations degree, which I kind of use for what I do now, but
Yeah.
not really. Right. And college is a great skill set. He paid for me to have great lifelong friends. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I still am really close with a number of those friends today. And whether or not you're close and they're lifelong friends, I don't think that's the measure of it. You have that walkability, you have that proximity, you see people at parties and in classes and in clubs and in the dining hall, right?
Yeah.
You're just like all together all the time. And you get really close with people. This is the other thing I think about college. It's like it's a time where everybody tells you like take the risk, do the silly things,
Yeah.
stay up until 6 a.m. That's a lot of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you stayed up until 6 a.m., did something really dumb and nearly got arrested, but got away with it, but had a final the next day that you bombed, and now you're telling your friend, and everybody's kind of laughing about it, but everybody also
Yeah.
knows there's going to be repercussions about the fact that you failed this class, right?
Yeah.
It's just like all these life circumstances are just like smashed together.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We've level set now. So you make some pretty good friends one way or another in college just by that like proximity and that built-in vulnerability.
Yeah.
Whether they are your lifelong friends or not, doesn't matter. You experience some things with some people. Now you've moved across the country. You're in Seattle. You're trying to make new friends. You are not with a bunch of people anymore necessarily who think it's totally normal to like mess up and fail your final, right? The idea is like, oh, you're an adult now, get your life together.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make friends without proximity. And you just maybe aren't going to get as close as fast as you did in college. Do you feel like there's been any whiplash with like expectations with how close you're going to be with people?
The narrative changes very fast, Alex.
Okay.
I will say that. So it's like, I remember I was bragging to my friends in college about how I crammed my last 3 finals into like a 12-hour period. And I had a 6-pack of Red Bull, and I went down in this base and just like grinded from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. or whatever the case may be. And they're like, oh, that's sick, dude.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, you did. Yeah.
Now, if I was like, oh yeah, like I just totally blew off work today and procrastinated all my tasks, I'd be like, dude, like what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's really bad. So yeah, I think that it definitely does change. I think the other thing that I'll kind of bring into this is that there are different seasons of life, right? And there are different like seasons of different friends. And so the unique thing about college is everyone's kind of in that same situation where they're like, it's socially acceptable to like do this, socially acceptable to get wasted on a Wednesday night. It's socially acceptable to, do all these things. And then when you kind of become an adult, you do have some people who kind of want an extension of college. You do have some other people who are like, oh, I'm a real person now. I need to wear quarter zips and drink matcha and, just really button up, right? And then you have some people who are somewhere in the middle, right? And so you kind of have to search for those people who fit that season of life that you're in as well. And I think that's something that's been hard for me to adjust to and learn a little bit is like, who am I? What am I actually looking for in a friend? Because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to find 100 people that I could party with than to find maybe 5 people that I could sit down and have a really good conversation at dinner with.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I've kind of had to shift my mentality about in college. In college, it's like, the more the merrier, the more friends I have, the better. And, we can all go out and be a squad and do this and that. But what I'm realizing now is that you want to find friends that really match where you're at and what you're looking for in life.
Man, what a swing. But I think you really encapsulated it really well. Like it hits hard. And I think so many people who have graduated, like it's hard enough to figure out how to have a job and how to show up every day and how to, handle your first performance review. But in the background, we have all this other stuff that somebody's navigating.
Yeah.
And suddenly like missing this whole social scene they had. I mean, you mentioned that earlier, right? You were just used to being busier.
Yep.
And all it took was a plane ride.
Yeah, no, literally. I like to say that college is kind of like freedom without the responsibility. And then adulthood is still freedom, but with responsibility. And that responsibility factor really changes things up. Because, you actually have real repercussions of everything that you're doing, right? And people react to that differently. And so I think just introducing that variable and then also on top of that, the proximity, also on top of that, I like that you mentioned the vulnerability piece as well. I also think that there is a little bit of pressure as someone in their early to mid 20s to kind of put up this, not front, but put up this idea that like, oh, I got my stuff together, I work this job and I make good money and I live in a nice apartment and things like that. And you want to kind of show the best parts, the put together parts about yourself. Whereas in college, we're so much more comfortable like showing all the not so put together parts about ourselves. And so I think that's another, I know you talk about vulnerability in friendships a lot, so I'm sure you can tap into that, but that is a big difference.
I mean, my advice to anybody would be like, try and find pockets where you just admit that, shit hit the fan. Whether that's close friends, whether that's like one area of your life that you're just really honest with anybody you meet, however you do it. I think it humanizes you. I think it gives somebody something to connect over because it may not be the same area of life, but they might also suddenly be like, oh yeah, I've actually been struggling with this, right? And just those little things like help let somebody feel Like they're not
Yeah.
alone, and then they let in. I was even thinking, when you were talking way back earlier, something that 6 Degrees is doing really well is you have all these silly little activities, right? So you were talking about making gingerbread houses. On the surface, that just seems like making a gingerbread house. But where my mind goes when you told me that earlier is that's such a great thing because somebody sits down and for 1 to 2 hours, they can kind of tap in to that. Maybe somebody's an expert gingerbread house builder. I don't know. But what's more likely than not, like if I did that, right, I'm like, oh, mine is kind of tipping over. Does somebody have super glue? Like my candy's falling off. It's all over the place. I ran out of candy because I didn't budget my candy correctly. And now one side of my house is pristine and the other side, like it's like a Jekyll and Hyde house, right? It's similar to what you were saying about that college finals thing, right? We're kind of admitting we're letting it down because we're doing this activity together. And that's easier to do about a gingerbread house than it is to do, I don't know, about your performance review that didn't go well or that you didn't budget well this month or whatever it is. But it's practice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's something, right? And first of all, the gingerbread house, that's exactly what happened to me. My thing collapsed and like
Yeah, because none of us are out here building gingerbread houses weekly unless you're a pastry chef,
I was just getting completely destroyed. My thing collapsed and I was like, well, this sucks. But the thing that made me actually feel better was I want everyone to succeed, but it was kind of fun because other people's houses were also collapsing and we were all like, laughing about that together. And that was a moment of bonding that it's pretty rare.
As an adult, I think it is rare. And we need to like find more of those little pockets because I believe that is like practice for the stuff that really matters.
Yes.
And, that is practice for like, I don't want to drag the mood down because gingerbread houses are fun, but like I have a friend who lost her husband this past summer, right? Everybody knows that happened. That is like slammed with vulnerability, every area of her life, every friendship, every relationship. And you're like, Alex, how does a gingerbread house building help me? But it's like the more we practice not having it together, I think it does dull the intensity of it a little bit when the big stuff happens. When
I totally agree.
It doesn't have to be losing your husband. Again, it could be, I don't know, you messed up an email to a client at work and you can't stop thinking about it.
Yep. I also think that this vulnerability piece is more important than ever as you kind of transition into adulthood because those types of situations where something bad happens, those bumps in the road are they happen a lot more. And,
yes, they do.
And it takes a real level of support and community to kind of go through that. I see so many people who they just kind of go through their job and, take things in stride. And this was me actually for my first few months living back in Seattle. It was just like, I didn't let anyone in on my problems. I was just like, well, I'm an adult now, so I have to go and deal with it.
Yep.
And I have to just kind of figure it out, right? It was the same type of mentality when I was living in New York. And I lived in New York for around a year, but it was the same kind of mentality. It was like, okay, bad performance review. Just got to keep that to myself and keep on moving and keep working harder. And, we're going to figure this out. But I think what we really miss in all of that is just the importance of letting somebody else know, right? Like letting somebody that we care about know, like, hey, like not everything is all sunshine and rainbows. And maybe from the outside, I look like I've gotten a promotion in the last 2 years or whatever the case may be. But on the inside, like I've actually had a lot of really tough conversations with my boss, or I've actually, almost been fired or something like that, right? Like, and hearing those things from some of my friends has been super rewarding for myself because it shows that I've been able to create a supportive enough of an environment for them where they were willing and open and able to tell me something that personal. And, I have to respect that and obviously be there for them so that you don't damage that. But I think to your point, that's super important.
I think that's great advice for anybody. And it could just be, like do it in little bits, people, little bits, like gingerbread houses.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
just work up to it if it feels too much for you.
Yeah.
The hardest part of any episode is how I tie this all up in a bow. And normally I kind of struggle with it sometimes. I am so excited about how I think I want to close this episode up because I think it ties everything together that we've talked about today. And we've talked a lot about vulnerability. We've talked about 6 degrees. We've talked about you moving back to Seattle and like deciding that you wanted something different for your social circle than your current situation. Let's talk about the vulnerability that is kind of admitting that you are going to use an event, an app, a friendship matchmaker, that you are listening to this podcast. There's kind of a stigma about needing help to make friends.
Yeah.
And you are out here specifically, right? Like you said, you solved your own problem. So there also maybe is like another layer for you of publicly admitting you had this problem, and it was such a problem that you created an entire event. Can you talk a little bit about like the stigma of getting help to make friends and your experience?
Yeah, it's a really tough subject to talk about, really, right? Like you have to get vulnerable with yourself. But I think the biggest thing to know is that it's really not anybody's fault. Like, and I think that was the biggest thing that I had to tell myself is it's not my fault for feeling this way. I think this whole podcast, we've kind of talked about all the difficulties that come with graduating college, moving to a new city, adjusting to post-grad life, meeting new people, meeting new like-minded people that fit into the exact season of life that you're kind of looking for. And there's really no blueprint or anything that's telling you about how to do any of that. So I would not think of like I used to think of myself like, oh, maybe I'm some socially awkward person. Maybe like, oh, like this is my fault for not putting myself out there. But I want anyone who's listening to this to know that it is not your fault. And at the end of the day, we are also wired for social connection. We're wired for community. We're wired for that sense of belonging and that sense of support. And my job, I feel, is just to give at least an option or some kind of blueprint that someone can follow. Yeah, it's not anyone's fault.
It's not. And in fact, there are so many factors out there, just like societal factors, right? Lack of walkable communities, lack of third spaces. Like, not only is it you're not socially awkward.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
another point I wanted to make is
Yeah.
that, like, I think a lot of people who come to the events or thinking about coming to the events might get the impression or get the belief that, oh, people at this event, they might be a little bit socially awkward, right? Or these are the people who, can't make friends, and I'm going to the event with the people who can't make friends. And I want you to know that's also not true. Like we said earlier, like it's no one's fault. Like everyone here is, yes, they are looking to make friends, but they are also just very like normal people like yourself who are, going through all of this.
If someone believes that, let me give you a scenario. It could be that somebody is just, maybe career is their main focus and they're working wild hours. I'm talking like 12, 14-hour days, right?
Yeah.
And they've had to sacrifice a lot of other areas of their life, but they know that they need like some friends to blow off steam, to have some fun,
Yeah.
to like think about something
That's
besides
true.
work. And maybe this is a way they outsource it. Is they're like, I don't have time to go bar hop around all over the place and make a million coffee dates, but I can commit to going to 2 6 degrees events a month
Yeah.
to try and make some friends in this new city that I moved to. It could just be outsourcing.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons that somebody could decide.
People jump immediately to the worst possible conclusions a lot of times because of that, social anxiety piece. But I would say the biggest percentage of people that we see at 6 degrees events are people who are brand new to the city, like literally moved here within like the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And so, if you just moved into the last 2 months And Seattle's not like one of those like common cities like New York. Like, you know how like when you go to New York, like everyone knows somebody in
Yeah.
New York. Seattle's not one of those cities. And so there's some people, you know, just genuinely just don't like know anyone in the city. They're not weird people whatsoever. It's just like, you know, that's what I would say is probably the most common, is someone who just moved here.
There you go. See, so many reasons somebody might decide. So don't just like assume that it's one thing or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
and for
thank you
chatting
so
with me
much.
today. I'm really excited about this episode. And we're going to tell everyone where to find you and where to find 6 Degrees events. And I'm going to come hang out with you at an event. So
Of
maybe some
course,
people see me
yeah.
there.
Anytime. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for the conversation, Alex.
Now, I know that a lot of you don't live in Seattle. In fact, it's a pretty small contingent. Fun fact. I think 4 or 5% of listeners live in the same city as me. You're all over the world. So hi, hello. But if you are in the Seattle area and Jason's story resonated with you, definitely check out 6 Degrees. You can find them on Instagram at 6degrees.space and check the show notes for discount code. Now, whether you are in Seattle or anywhere else, I want you to know something if you're listening to this and feeling that post-college social whiplash that Jason described so perfectly. You're not broken. You're not socially awkward. You're not failing at something that should be easy. The transition from college social life to adult friendship is jarring for almost everyone. One day you're walking 5 minutes to your friend's dorm room, and the next day, you're texting back and forth about hanging out this weekend and knowing you're going to have to drive 30 plus minutes and wondering if the hangout will even happen. One day, vulnerability is celebrated, like staying up all night cramming for finals because you made some bad decisions. And then the next day, you feel the pressure to have everything together. It's a different game, and nobody gives you a rule book. So if this conversation hit home with you, if you are in this transition, I actually have another episode about this exact topic. Well, pretty close. I think my guest in that topic was a couple years older, but very similar. It's way back in the archives. It's episode 21, and it might be exactly what you need to hear right now. The bottom line is this: needing to be intentional about friendship doesn't make you weird. Admitting that you want to make connections and feeling like you need some help doesn't make you pathetic. It makes you human. And Jason's right. You're probably not alone in feeling this way. In fact, you might be surprised how many people around you are feeling the exact same thing. With that, I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle at it's Alex Alexander. Or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting, and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.